It's the Prison News Podcast on Spreaker. Greetings and welcome to the Prison News Podcast on Spreaker. I'm your host, and what we're going to do now is answer some questions I'm getting quite a bit, is how do you set up a Spreaker podcast? No, I don't have a watermelon seed in my tooth. It's spelled Spreaker. You get a little so-called studio, which works pretty good by downloading an app. Let's just go ahead and start from the very beginning. This is my first gig doing these podcasts, so we're transferring over from. I've had multiple accounts over at YouTube, not working out so good there, so we're going to try the waters over here on Spreaker. Spreaker gives you a free account to try. They let you go for the 15 minutes, and you download an app. That's what I've done for this thing here. Now, you could read an audiobook on this thing. You could do effects, Hey, Tommy, what's that? I don't know. My uncle found this in the room. Let's go up and look. The door opened on a rusty hinge, and little Tommy stepped inside. Hey, firecrackers. What are those firecrackers for? So that little range test shows you that I'm using just a raw Spreaker studio, so that gives you the range and the clarity. Now, I work without a net here. I don't have any software other than just the Spreaker. I have no way to edit. If I'm going to sneeze or something, I have to try to hit the mute button or the pause button, sneeze, and go back into it. But so far, so good. Spreaker has been honest, pretty much straightforward. There are just a couple of nags, which you would expect. I mean, if you sign up for this free podcast, on occasion, they're going to remind you that, hey, for a few extra bucks, come on aboard. You can make a bigger and better podcast. What I've done here, I've brought up currently they offer 5 different venues or slots, I guess you'd call them. First is called Free Speech. That's free. Next one is called On Air Talent for $5.99 per month. Or if you want to come up and pay up at all, they give you a little discount for just $59 for the year. Next one's called The Broadcaster. It's going to cost you a $20 bill. That one lets you go a full 3 hours talking. The others will reduce you to either 15 minutes or 45 minutes. So, okay, $20 a month. What if I go for the whole year? It's going to be $199 for the whole year. Now, when you get up to what's called the Anchor Man, that's some money, some coin there. That's $50 a month, but lets you go a full 5 hours, and more importantly, gives you 1,500 hours for the entire year in total. So you can do a lot with that. And then the big one called The Station, I used to call it the Station Master, is $119 a month or $1,199 annually. Now that's unlimited. 24/7 you can start talking, it says, and you can keep talking. And if you could have a string of so-called voiceover artists, what do they call themselves, one after another, you could go unlimited for the entire year. Hard to believe. I almost can't believe it, that they would have to cap that off. Anyway, that's just good for them. Now, this thing's called the embedded player. That comes with all of them. So what you do, you go to Spreaker, you take the email, you sign up, and there you've got a podcast. I currently use it's just a little donated kind of a cell phone here. I have dedicated to the Spreaker effects. And yes, they do have effects. If I were to tap this bell right here, just that quick, a bell would come in. When I do the inmate stuff, I know I haven't done this yet, but here at Prison News, if there was going to be a gunfire, gun sound, just that quick, I could just tap a little icon, and it would layer in a couple sound effects, just rudimentary sound effects. Now, I don't use those things typically when I'm doing a news broadcast, but it's good to know that those things are there if we need them. Now, as time goes on, you become a little bit more familiar with this thing and find out that it helps to aggregate all the things that you're making, all the content that you're trying to create. Now, for me, I'm not a content creator. I'm not a voiceover artist. I'm not an audiobook guy who reads audiobooks. I'm not what's called a voice actor. I'm none of these things. What I am is I bring the teaching. I'm simply bringing some teaching on whatever happens to come up that day. Lately, it's been a lot of inmate stuff, prison escapes, prison inmates, guys trying to take over the transport bus, trying to break out of the cell, trying to get their hands on a correctional officer or get over the wall. So bringing the teaching, basically someone might say, hey, get that guy over there to get everybody to start putting the right kind of air in the tires. I want the right kind of air. I don't want air. I want pure nitrogen. Put in all the tires in the fleet. These guys are not keeping the pressures right. It's either too high or too low. So I come over, I talk about the effects of too much air pressure, could damage the center of the tire, make it kind of skitterish. You could have a skid, could result in an accident, or by not putting enough air in the tire, or in this case, nitrogen. It's going to be what they call cupping, where the tire wears off the sides instead of the center, wears out faster, and can heat up too. Could have a delamination. So, okay, a teaching. So there's everybody doing lots of things on the Spreaker Studio. Some guys are giving lessons on what to do and how to do it. Again, these guys are using software. I have none. They're using a computer. I have none. I'm working without a net. I'm speaking into this thing. In fact, I will purposely cough on the number between 3 and 4. I'll cough. I'll hit the pause button and come back and let you hear it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, between 3 and 4, I hit the pause button. You may have heard a little difference. I purposely coughed and came back. That's the extent of what I got to work with. I know there's guys that have these specialty devices that fit on the computer. It's made just for their voice. If they sneeze or if they intake like I just did just now, too much air, it mutes it out or whatever. Nope, this is just raw stuff here at Prison News Broadcast on Spreaker. So when you get started, you set the thing up, and it will keep track of all your podcasts. Now, one of the neatest things I've seen is without being told, if you tell it just it's okay, it'll post the thing to your YouTube account. So, for instance, if I talk right now about, again, keeping the right amount of air pressure in the tire, or about some inmates trying to escape, or some correctional officers and their misdeeds, they were caught doing something, right within a minute, that thing is not only put into the Spreaker podcast sphere where you can listen to it, it's also posted to the YouTube account. Now that's really good. That's kind of nice stuff if you were going to build up your brand or whatever. Again, I'm not advocating that. I don't do any of that myself. It just comes. It just happens. So you've got that, and then you've got what we call a time delay or a time release. That means if somebody was going to be out of town for a couple of days, for instance, or they're going to be away from any Wi-Fi, you could make 2 or 3 episodes ahead, about some guys escaping over here. Other guys tried to make a tattoo gun over here. Somebody got either AIDS or hepatitis or something like that. Or there was some legislation over here where inmates were going to have to work out on chain gangs again, something like that. You do all 3 of those in a row, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. It will allow you to tell them, I want this one going in Monday, this one going in Tuesday, and you know what? I don't want this one going in Wednesday until after 2 o'clock p.m. The Spreaker deal actually allows you to do all that for free, to stack up, if you will, like dominoes, lessons or podcast, whatever you want to call them, ahead of time. And so there you are. Now, you might say, was there anything else to it? Not much. Now, there are guys out there that go like $5,000 for a microphone. I'm just using a little, as I say, a little handheld cell phone. I've got a little thing that come with it, which I think it's called a hands-free kit, so somebody won't swerve in front of you. You'll keep both your hands on the wheel and swerve and miss them, hopefully. It just kind of hangs down by your throat. That's all I've got. But I've done a couple tests on the competitors, Spreaker's competitors. In fact, I came to Spreaker last. I'd never even heard of them. The other ones don't seem to do the muting, and their software doesn't seem to be as clear or what I call layered or compelling. If I say, hey, you kids be careful with that. Get away from there. I said, get. The Spreaker really puts it out there. But some of the other ones, it was kind of wispy. It's hard to explain. But when I played it back, I said, the Spreaker really seems to be putting some different things out there. And then a while ago, we were reading McGuffey's Readers. That was the 200-year-old books used to teach kids how to read, write, spell, arithmetic, the whole shooting match. Reading some segments from those 200-year-old books to see how far things have come in the education system and the criminal justice system. Those McGuffey's Readers were also used to teach inmate children back in the day. So by doing all this, there is no we, that the Spreaker Studio, the thing that you download called an app out of the App Store, did a great job. Now, I'm using it on an Android platform. I know there's people out there that use them on Apples. The one time I did try it on an Apple, it didn't go so very good. Apple, I've had some trouble with stability issues lately, and also with I call ethical issues. I'm not just talking about the suicides of guys hanging themselves. having to work so long and hard in that Qingdao province or whatever it's called, the very famous place. There's apparently more suicides out of Apple than the whole city. But the other things at Apple is the sneaky kind of stuff they do. Like, for instance, if you try to use a VPN, a virtual private network, and you try to just, hey, you hook up an Apple device, and maybe you're going to make a little Spreaker studio real quick, it won't do it. It freezes you. It makes you release that so they can have that control or have that information to send to a Fusion Center or whatever Apple says they do or don't do with that personal information. Another question that comes up is, do you need to take a lesson? You probably do. I've never taken a lesson in my life. I've got these two hands on the controls. One holds the donated cell phone here. The other tries to turn the pages silently, and I read the content, or do the teaching rather, and that's it. I'm sure getting some teaching, I think it would really help. You can listen to, let's just call this a C- broadcast for clarity, content, everything. C- at its best day. There's guys doing A and A plus and A- work out there, and you can hear right away, like, listen to the dead air between 1 and 2. 1, 2. Okay, you might have heard if you had earphones on, a little bit of something there, kind of like it's like a noise, a resonance type noise. Well, these guys have their microphones tricked up so hot. I mean, there's zero noise. It's just dead space between those two. And then they have words called like clipping, like some kind of like a dog barking on the top of the clip when you talk too loud or enthusiasm hits it and the little wave hits clips and all this and that. I don't want to get into any of that. I just want to deliver the teaching and let her go and get down the road and get on my way. So anyway, Spreaker, I give this thing about, I have to give it high marks. Now they're not giving me nothing. I'm not affiliated with them. I'm not, angling for a deal or trying to get a teaching out of them where I can do a teaching, get $100 or whatever however these guys do this stuff. I'm just giving you a straightforward how I use this thing, how I came about it, and what it's doing so far. Now, I should also tell you that if you don't want this thing to post to YouTube, I was monkeying around in there and somehow got it to not do it. So about half the stuff did not post to YouTube. But I feel somewhat sure that if I were to sit down and get some kind of a tutorial or just read the instructions, I could figure out a lot more. Now, I'm going to go ahead and hit just a couple of sound effects. So I'm not going to play the whole thing, just a few seconds of each of them, and you can see what's going to come with it if you decide to use a sound effect, if you decide to go with the Spreaker. Here's number 1. And I'll show you a little thing here. The introduction I have on a little button. I'm going to hit the introduction, and I'll play it, and I'll be silent. It'll be the introduction playing right now.
It's the Prison News Podcast.
Okay, I'm back on live here. So I've actually put that little Prison News Podcast broadcast on the broadcast button there. So I can just tap it and then come right in, and in theory, it'll always be the same. It might work, it might not. Now, on the very bottom, there's called a push to talk, and I've had nothing but mixed results with this. I guess there's guys out there, old school radio heads, who actually would get, like,
Mari, you're getting too close to the desk. Get back. Mari, get back from the desk. You're going to swallow the microphone.
And so they hunch up and they have this button on this thing, and you push it and you hold it while you're talking. And then there's a little duck here where you adjust these ducking controls. Again, I'm out of this thing, out of my level. And you can get this thing apparently to skip rope for you or whatever, jump through some hoops. I tried it once. I fouled the nest. I got myself into real trouble with it. I actually had to uninstall the app because I didn't know what I was doing. Got in over my head. That's right. I got in over my head. Reinstalled the app. Of course, that necessitated me having to sign in again. That was a blast. And it was straightforward. By the way, I think it worked even better after I did the full reinstall again. It cleared up a little bit when I have to delete things that don't work out so very good. It deleted much more quickly. So there it is, Spreaker Studio, it's called. They have some kind of a thing you can listen to. I tried it. I didn't get bored. I just had to go. I had to run. They have a thing that says start your podcast today, and they'll have your try to get you going. There's a little login. And then they have another app